One of the other areas that could be affected by that is Jefferson Parish. We have seen one power outage that is pretty significant there tonight. Entergy reporting that the town of Lafitte, Lower Lafitte, is without power because of a situation there. And Parish Council member Scott Walker is joining us by phone tonight to give us the latest on what's happening in JP and a little bit more information on that power outage. Scott?
Good evening. How are y'all?
We're doing well.
We're well.
It's been a long haul, and
we're only getting
I
started.
thought Chris could use a break from y'all.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us. You know, Lafitte apparently is without power. It looks like 374 people, customers affected there.
Yeah, this happened just after we left Lafitte tonight. We were down there with Mayor Kerner and helping with some of the situations they were dealing with. And this is in Lower Lafitte. A car hit a pole. Entergy was addressing it. Shouldn't be a long-term outage, but that's certainly not something you need right before a major weather event that could disrupt power anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Any idea how many people are out of that area? Because that's a mandatory evacuation site, right?
Yeah, and there were still a lot of people around there. I mean, the people in Lafitte and Grand Isle. One thing I've learned over many years of watching these storms, is that sometimes it's really hard to get people to leave, even under a mandatory evacuation, especially in those areas, because they're so tied to the community and they're so dedicated to it, love it so much. So there's still a lot of people in Lafitte, and I suspect a lot of people still in Grand Isle. But the thing is, especially in Grand Isle, once that water comes up and floods Highway 1 and the bridge is closed, you're there, and there's no getting out until the storm's over. So you have to make sure you have enough to get through, because it's not about surviving or not surviving. It's about just having enough food to be comfortable for a couple of days and making sure you're in a good spot. So a lot of times it's just easier to get out for your own comfort.
You know, a lot of our residents in many of these areas are hurricane experts. They know hurricanes, you know.
Inside and out.
Inside and out, absolutely. And so, when they say they're going to stay, it's kind of like, well, what do you do at that point?
Yeah, look, I could sense the frustration in Lafitte today with the people there, because a lot of them are just getting back to where they were before Hurricane Ida, where their houses are fixed up again and everything's nice. Some of them have just finished up or still dealing with insurance claims from Hurricane Ida. So when you're talking about a 4 to 7 foot storm surge that Lafitte could see over the next 24 hours, that's disheartening to a lot of people. And they're like, man, here we go again. But that's one resilient, tough group of people down there, and they love their community, and they're never giving up, and they're going to continue to fight it. But it does get old.
Yeah, that level of storm surge, what's the concern there? I mean, how serious of a storm surge is that for them? I mean, many of the houses down there are obviously elevated.
Right. So it's not as much water that's going to get into your houses, but it's water that causes flooding, brings in a lot of that mud, the thick mud that settles on your driveways and on your lawns and on your porch, and can ruin sheds that have lawn equipment and whatever else in it. So it causes a lot of problems, and it's just something that you obviously don't want to deal with, but it's something they're going to have to face, and a lot of that area is outside the levee protection system, so they have an increased risk. But there are holes in that permanent levee that they've addressed with sandbags. About 15,000 sandbags went down over the past couple of days, so they feel like they're pretty protected for this storm surge specifically. If for something worse, a stronger storm coming in, they may not feel as positively about it, but I think right now they feel pretty good about where they are heading into the storm and being able to weather it.
I know earlier today that there were 2 of those levees were in place already whenever you all had the press conference with Parish President Cynthia Lee Sheng. Has all that work been completed, or is there still work to do tomorrow?
2 of the what? I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit.
The levees with the sandbags were completed. Have those all been finished?
There is one about 700-foot stretch where they ran out of HESCO baskets, and there was going to be a problem getting more from the National Guard down from the state and GOSEP to get it in place, possibly before they saw some of that storm surge. So in Lower Lafitte, about a 700-foot section is still open from where the permanent flood wall ends to where the HESCO baskets begin, to sort of bridge that gap. And that's something they were going to try and find another solution for. Some of those baskets, not the HESCO baskets, some of the smaller kind of bag-looking barriers that they put sand in that can block that area a little bit.
Yeah, well, hopefully they can work that out. Now it sounds like the hurricane is going to take a little longer to get here, so maybe that'll give them some time to work that out tomorrow.
Yeah, a little extra time tomorrow for them will certainly be helpful.
What are your other areas of concern?
Well, obviously, Lower Jefferson, Lafitte, Grand Isle is going to be a concern. I talked about the 4 to 7 feet of storm surge expected in Lafitte. Grand Isle could see, 7 to 10, depending on how this thing comes in. They've just gotten a lot of things back in place again too after Hurricane Ida. So Mayor Carmardell is always ready and always prepared, because he's seen a number of these come through there over the years. But again, it's a community that is still recovering in a lot of ways, and they say, here we go again, and it kind of gets you down. But they're a tough community as well, and they'll be able to weather this one, and hopefully this is sort of a dry run to test some of that new infrastructure that Entergy put in there after Hurricane Ida, which should be much better and should hold up better. There's a lot of metal poles on the island now. I think after Ida, you had every wooden pole along Highway 1 that had fallen across the street. That hopefully won't happen again, and I don't think this is a situation where the poles would be blown down anyway, but in a future event that might have a little more wind packing behind it, you may not see that extensive infrastructure damage that you did a few years ago.
And what we're looking at right now is a shot of Grand Isle on our air here. It is dark, so it's hard to tell exactly what you're looking at, but you can see that there is some rain out there right now. So again, live look from Grand Isle. It is important that there have been so many upgrades to that power grid. Can you talk about some of the other upgrades that have happened throughout Jefferson Parish in terms of hardening the energy grid since Hurricane Ida?
And as you probably know, we've gone back and forth with Entergy a little bit over what we believe should happen with some of their infrastructure and what they believe should happen. There's a difference of opinion there in some ways. And we deal with Entergy Louisiana, unlike New Orleans, which deals with and regulates Entergy New Orleans. So it's two different regulation systems. The Public Service Commission regulates Entergy Louisiana, so we don't have a whole lot to say about what they do or can't force them to do much. But they have done some infrastructure improvements since Hurricane Ida. They have a plan to replace 10,000 poles over the next few years with either wooden poles that are a stronger wooden pole or a composite in some of those places. So they are working through, and they're replacing poles, and they're working on their substations and trying to make them a little hardier. So, for instance, a squirrel can't get into one of your substations and knock out power to an entire area during the summer for a strong amount of time. Maybe that's what you're talking about with doom squirreling earlier, that those are the ones just jump into the Entergy substations and cause problems. But they are doing things. It's not as much as we'd like, as quickly as we'd like, but they have promised that they are going to do things proactively and improve the infrastructure in Jefferson Parish. It's just, I think the can was kicked down the road for a long time, and there's a lot to do, and they can't do it all in a short amount of time. It's going to take some time.
It's a bit of whack-a-mole from what I understand. They fix one problem over here, another one pops up over here, and you just never know which one is going to pop up when.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
And
well, we want to thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Councilmember Scott Walker from Jefferson Parish. We're going to check back in with him again tomorrow, just to see how things are going as this storm makes its way into Louisiana.
Yeah.
And we'll take a short break and be right back.
This is a severe weather alert from WWL Weather, sponsored by Egan Insurance Agency.
Welcome back, everybody. The time now is 11 o'clock. We are covering Hurricane Francine, which is churning off the coast of Texas at this hour, but it will be making its way here to Louisiana and to the metro area tomorrow, sometime around dinner time. I'm Katie Moore with Devin Bartolotta tonight. We've been covering the storm for about 11 hours now.